My name is Dr. Nirmalia Bakchi. I am the Director General in charge of Administrative Staff College of India. Today is our 64th Foundation Day. And like every year, we are conducting the Foundation Day lecture to commemorate this event. I welcome our chairman, Shri K. Padmanabhaiya. I welcome our chief guest, Professor Anil D. Sahasrabudhe, Chairman AICTE, who will deliver our Foundation Day lecture. I welcome our honorable COG members, our registrar, Dean of Training, eminent invited guests from the bureaucracy and industry, our clients, our faculty members, officers, staff, and students. We would have loved to have this event like every year in a physical format to celebrate this joyous occasion. But unfortunately, because of the pandemic, which has played spoil sport, we are having to do this online. But be that as it may, we are extremely honored that we have with us Professor Anil Sahasrabudhe, Chairman AICTE, who is going to deliver the Foundation Day lecture for us. As you all know, our college has trained generations of civil servants and managers, not just of this country, but also of the neighborhood in Bangladesh, Bhutan, Afghanistan, several African countries, Middle Eastern countries, and Eastern Europe. Several of our alumni members are CMDs of large PSUs, secretaries to Government of India, are heading banks, and also many other important positions. We are very proud of their accomplishment. We are proud of the rich heritage that our research and consultancy assignments, which has shaped many of the reforms of the Government of India. Last year, we conducted 161 management development programs, 59 of them open announced programs, and 102 of them as in-company training programs. The client list consists majorly, major clients consists of ONGC, Indian Oil Corporation, NHPC, NALCO, NMDC, Oil India, PFC, PGCIL, REC, NTPC, THDC, EPFO, NICF, Asian Development Bank, Canara Bank, and the World Bank. I'm also happy to state with you that the program, postgraduate diploma program in management, which we launched last year, with the approval, all the necessary approvals of AICTE, is also going on very fine. The clients with whom we had business with for research and consultancy studies last year were Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, UNICEF, Niti Aayog, LIC, Coal India, PFC Consulting, Ministry of Justice, NABARD, Dr. Reddy's Foundation, Tata Advanced Systems Limited, Aurobindo Pharma, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, THDC. Going forward, we see that as the impact of COVID is dampened and the economy of the country is revived, we see a lot of scope for the college in partnering with the government and industry in helping the industry and the economy to attain its full potential. Many important initiatives have been taken by the Government of India in the last 3-4 months, like the new education policy, installation of the National Medical Commission, and other such pro-reform measures. We are fully geared and excited to partner with the government in taking these reform measures to its logical conclusion. Indeed, our Honourable Chief Guest and Speaker of the evening will be covering one of those reform measures. So without much further ado, I now request our Chairman, Shri K. Padmanabhaiya, former Home Secretary of the country, to make his introductory remarks and also to introduce our speaker for the evening. Over to you, sir.
Distinguished guests, good evening to all of you. I join my Director General in warmly welcoming Professor Anil Sahasrabudhe, the Chairman of AICTE, who is going to deliver the foundation lecture of the 64th Foundation Day of ASCI. Now, I am now basically addressing the guests. Professor Sahasrabudhe heads the All India Council for Technical Education, and this is a body promoting and regulating, promoting, sort of harmonizing, and also regulating the technical education at all levels in the country. People may not know, but ASCI, this AICTE is one of the oldest organizations established. It was established prior to independence in 1945, though it got a statutory recognition only in 1987. We are extremely glad to have Professor Sahasrabudhe address us because he is a hands-on expert, being at the head of this organization for the last 5 years, and also being the director of one of the most prestigious engineering colleges in the country, the Pune Engineering College. He has been the director of the IIT Shillong, and he has been a member of so many other committees concerned with the technical education. I don't have to name all those things. And he has been a recipient of a variety of scientific awards and memberships of various bodies. The subject chosen by him is a new education policy 2020. Now, while mentioning the subject, what he did was he also mentioned as subtitles the intent, the aspiration, the challenge, the resources, and the implementation. He has divided into this. That shows what a sharp brain Professor Sahasrabudhe is. I mean, this is a 360-degree review of the matter he is going to do. And the subtitles show his clarity of thinking in this. Most of us believe in India that the policies are made very well, but in implementation, they generally fail. I mean, there is some sort of a wanting in the implementation. That's why it is extremely important that he has divided these into 5 components, and he is going to address these things. Now, the national education policy itself is based on Dr. Kasturi Rangan's report, which was given in 2019, and it runs into almost about 500 pages. And the new policy announced into 2020 that itself goes to about 64 pages. And it covers from the basic education, preschool education from the 3rd year onwards up to the university and all that. And I would deem that this is one of the, I said, in fact, I must say, the most important policy announcement made by the country, by the government in the last few years. Because the India's progress, which is in the human resource development, and in the integrated and globalized world, there is so much of competition for this, and how we sort of shape our future in the education is the most important policy matter. I'm glad that we are touching upon that today. We have attending this particular event almost all the members of the Court of Governors of ASCI who have distinguished themselves in various walks of life, many other distinguished guests, students of the PGDM and PG diploma course in health management, etc. I do not know whether there would be a time for question answers, but I would suggest to Professor Sahasrabudhe's consideration, but maybe 4 or 5 questions he could take at the end of his lecture. Now, without much ado, I would request Professor Sahasrabudhe to deliver his speech. Thank you. On to you, Professor Sahasrabudhe.
Yeah. Namaskar. Good evening to all of you. Sri K. Padmanabhaiya, Chairman of Court of Governors, Administrative Staff College of India, Dr. Nirmale Bagchi, Director General in charge ASCI, Professor Valli Manikam, Dean, Dr. BVR Mohan Reddy, who is my mentor, good friend. He helped us in AICTE.
Yeah.
Other members of the governing body, faculty members, and dear students of ASCI, and all those who are associated with ASCI, who are attending this very important 64th Foundation Day of ASCI. On behalf of myself, I congratulate you for completing 64 years and then landing up into the Foundation Day, which is a very important milestone in the achievements of the ASCI. I am just, in fact, I was looking at the background and I found that it was AICTE when it was not a, the regulatory body, but advisory body, that it had suggested that such an institution should come up.
Wonderful.
for training of maybe civil servants, people in the public sector. And that is how, soon after independence, whatever AICTE asked the government to do, in about 10 years' time, that is in 1957, on this very day, 6th December. 6th December has a lot of value. In fact, there are many things which happened on 6th December. And this 6th December 57, this institution started its academic programs. This is what I learned from the website. So that means there is an intimate bond between AICTE and ASCI, number one. Secondly, I was looking at what all we are doing now and what ASCI has been doing in the last several years in terms of various types of faculty development programs, which are very important in terms of service people development programs, short-term workshops, and then finally the PGDM programs and the various subjects that have been chosen, starting from human resource management, marketing, financial operations, innovations, entrepreneurship, AI and data science. Then you have energy, health systems, urban infrastructure, environment. If you look at all of this, in some way or the other, they are all connected with the new national education policy. While I'm speaking, I will somehow connect the dots, but what I found. Secondly, these programs, and exactly the same way, AICT in the last 3 years has been doing several programs, several initiatives, which are all exactly the way the projection has been made by the new national education policy that we must implement this. Probably we are all ahead of times, both ASCI and AICT, and that's why these are very important elements where we match with each other. And incidentally, in a lighter vein, my birth also took place in the same year, 1957, about 3 months before this institution came up. So I think there are lots of connects I was looking at. And therefore, I chose this topic of national education policy with 5 different elements which are associated with that. And they are all very important and significant from different perspectives. So when the policy was announced on the 29th of July, in the first 8 days itself, the Prime Minister himself came forward, spoke for 1 hour to all the educationists that what is this all policy about. That means a policy which was based on the consultations with 2.5 lakh gram panchayats. So P, panchayats, to Prime Minister, P to P involvement and all the people's involvement. And that's why there is not much criticism. Dr. Kasturi Rangan has been a very great scientist and he has put in all the efforts in order to bring out this policy. But Prime Minister spoke 2-3 important words, and that's where I picked up this set of 5 words actually for this today's presentation. That is, he said in Hindi that नीति तो अच्छी हो सकती है, लेकिन वो अलमीरा में रखने के लिए नहीं है, ना सर्कुलर भेजने के लिए नहीं है. उसको कैसे हम कार्यान्वयन करते हैं, ये महत्वपूर्ण है. तो इसलिए नीति से बाहर उठकर हमको रणनीति करनी चाहिए. In English we say strategy. And strategic planning is one of the important things in all the management parlance. And then creating a roadmap. From the roadmap, get all types of resources to be utilized, accumulate them, and then start implementation. That's an action plan. And then regular review of the policy so that we really achieve the targets that are being set by the committee, which had a lot of vision, which was embedded into this policy. I think that is where I think I took this initiative in talking about this particular policy. And let me now look at how I can start my presentation, if it is possible, by sharing. And if it is possible to share, then I will show the PowerPoint presentation. And along with that, we will start off with, I don't know whether I'm able to show. Is it visible?
Yeah, even here. Yeah, it is slightly visible, but one has to strain a bit, but it's fine. I think we can. Yeah.
I think now.
Yeah, that's fine.
Huh?
That's fine.
So that is how I started with the topic as intent, aspirations, challenges, resources, and implementation.
Yes.
So let us get into the introduction part of the policy itself. Policy document, Dr. Kasturi Rangan has beautifully narrated in one small paragraph what is it all about. And it talks about education is fundamental for achieving full human potential. The words are to be observed actually, full human potential. So that means we again remember Swami Vivekananda, who said education is nothing but exploration of the individual's capacity which already is inherent, and perfection which is already in man is to be brought out. And that is what this policy talks about. Full human potential, developing an equitable and just society. In a democratic country, in a republic, we all talk about equitable and just society. How education will lead to that? Provide global leadership in economic growth, social justice, and equality. The world is not of the same order as what we assume and we want to have. And that's why this particular statement, social justice and equality, not just in our country, but entirely globally, global leadership is important. And through scientific advancement, internally, national integration, cultural preservation, very important parameter, cultural preservation, which we had for a long time, we have forgotten, we have to reinvent that. And then providing opportunities to explore, innovate, and the graduates who are coming out, they must be not only employable, but they must be entrepreneurial and enjoy the demographic dividend. I think this is very nutshell the whole policy is all about. Now I'll take us back to little behind and then say that why this policy. So we had after 7 decades of independence and 34 years after the last policy, this policy has come at a very crucial juncture. When the reference to the culture is mentioned, we should understand that not everything has come from the West. We always assume that the education that we take today is all because of the Western world. But we must understand that the India, the Bharat, was fully highly progressive, and we had our own ancient Indian educational system called Gurukula. And then that Guru Shishya Parampara, which we have forgotten today, but the Western world has followed it up. For example, any PhD scholar, when he goes to a foreign university, the kind of relationship that is there between the professor and the student is amazing. And that was what was there in our country during the Guru Shishya Parampara Gurukula system. And also, if you look at the top global universities, we lament today that none of our universities are amongst the top 100, top 200. We start only after 200. You know, we are top 300, top 400, but not within top 100 or 200. But around 3,600 years ago to 12th century AD, there were no universities. The only country which had universities was our country. Takshashila, Nalanda, Vikramshila, Vallabhi, you name it, there were 16 thriving ancient universities. And therefore, knowledge seekers from across the globe were visiting India. And today we go to US, you go to UK, we go to Germany, Japan for education. I think that trend needs to be reversed. And that's what this particular policy is talking about. In terms of heritage, the subject matters which were studied in those Nalanda, Takshila ranged from astronomy, science, physics, chemistry, biology, material science, management, Ayurveda, yoga, 64 different art forms, philosophy, psychology, and top it all, the diamond or the what we say jewel of science is mathematics. And we know Aryabhatta, all of those great scientists who created mathematics of the highest order then went to the Western system. So we had indigenous education system as late as 1830s. The beautiful tree by Dharmapal writes about Bengal, Madras, Bombay presidencies, Kerala, Punjab. In fact, there was a Kerala school of mathematics. All of these had an indigenous system which was unfortunately destroyed by the English Education Act 1835 by the Macaulay. Although we are very proud that we are one of the countries where English education is of the top order. In fact, probably many times there are jokes that probably our grammar is better than even English people. So we have adopted it so much. That's fine. You know, we don't have any hatred for any language, but we had our own system. English as a language is no problem, but the values which India carried were all destroyed. And that's why today we are in a state of flux where we had to reinvent ourselves. So in this perspective, we started with independence. Immediately after independence, Dr. Radhakrishnan committee was there. It submitted a report which is called Radhakrishnan Committee Report in 48-49. And that is how UGC came into existence. Kothari Commission, the National Education Policy of 68, then 1986, revised policy of 1992, And finally, this policy, which came after 34 years, or 165 years after Macaulay introduced an act which destroyed our education system. And therefore, this policy is very, very significant. But intermittently, there were several reports, whether it is from what you say as Yashpal Committee, Sam Petroda Committee, Nigwekar Committee, Kakodkar Committee, they all dealt with various aspects of either education, science, research, information technology, industry, etc., which are all significant, and these are all embodied in some way in the new national education policy. But please remember that there are those policies. As the Prime Minister said that the policy is not meant for keeping it in Almira or sending circulars, but actually implementation, that's what did not happen. And that's why we must look at achievements, successes, and failures. Both are there. So, for example, we have certainly achieved great successes in terms of, say, gross enrollment ratio from a mere 17% to as high as 94%, very close to now 98, 99%, and everyone would be educated up to at least school education level by the next 5 to 10 years. That is the vision that this policy has taken forward. In higher education, we were weak. We were merely 0.7% at the time of independence. Today we are 27%. Number of universities, you could have counted them on the hands. From 25, today we are at 1,000 plus. There are many private universities, they emerge every day. The count is not there even for UGC, forget about others, because different states legislate and then we come to know a little later. And the government of India, the national government, has established excellent institutions like IITs, IIMs, NITs, ISERs, triple ITs, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, National Law Universities, schools of planning and architecture, national institutes of design, and several central universities. That means a lot of emphasis has gone in for the last 70 years in terms of establishing all of this. And the benefit of this has been, whether it is civil servants who are there, they have all come from this same education system, as well as if you look at the public sector or some of the very important organs of the government like ISRO for space research and all the satellite which are sent, and finally we enjoy the benefit, whether it is TV, whether it is mobiles, all of that courtesy ISRO, Department of Atomic Energy, not only power plants, but having a powerful bomb in our hands so that enemy will not look with an angled eye on our side. BRC, DRDO, public sector, all are homegrown from our own institutions. Then as far as IT sector is concerned, we know TCS, Infosys, Wipro, Cognizant, they are all global giants. When it was in the late 20th century or the early 21st century, there was a problem called Y2K problem. And that is where our industry really captured the attention of the entire world, that we are IT superpower. All the problems which people were thinking will happen were easily taken care of by our IT industry, whether it is TCS, Infosys, Wipro, Cognizant, and that's how we are very, very powerful in terms of IT. But we missed the bus in some of the things like hardware industry, in terms of having our own operating system in our own language. We have missed something. And my work with Dr. F.C. Kohli, who was the first chairman of TCS and who was the Board of Governors chairman of College of Engineering Pune at the ripe age of 82, 84. Only last week he passed away at the age of 96. I think he was always lamenting that why did we not do operating system in our Indian languages? Why did we not take up hardware as seriously as software? Today we would have beaten China or any other country for that matter. I think that apart, that is where many a times our industry keeps talking about quality of education, the employability. Many times, many surveys say that it is only 30%, 40%, at most 50%. No survey has ever said that our employability of graduates is more than 50%. So I think what is happening to the other 50%? Why are we falling behind? And therefore, where quality imperatives are required to be implemented? How new businesses to be started by our students, that is entrepreneurship. These are all issues which are actually in a way partial successes and partial failures. And that is where, after this 165 years of Macaulay system, or 34 years after the last policy of independent India was announced, we have to do a study of what went right, what went wrong, review it, analyze it, do consultations, and bring out the policy. And that's what Dr. Kasturi Rangan committee has done. And kudos to them, thanks to them, that they have done a policy in a very small booklet, 65, 70 pages. Beautifully, everything is narrated about our whole history, success, failure, what needs to be done, how we need to go forward. And therefore, two important things which I take as takeaways from out of that are pride in India, its achievements, its values, its culture, its languages. These are all altogether missing today. And how do we bring them into the mainstream? I think that is one part subtly mentioned in different ways. The second one is 21st century needs of the country in terms of economy, in terms of society, in terms of the aspirations of the people, and how we can meet them through the route of education. I think the education is the key, and that's what this policy talks about. Now, there are different aspirations, and we run a program called Student Induction Program. And when we ask the questions to our young students who just join a college in the first year, they have different types of aspirations. Their parents have different aspirations. The society has aspirations. The government has aspirations. But sum total of that is we need to actually fully explore this potential. Human being with his human consciousness, we need to be happy. Everyone wants to be happy. We all want to be prosperous. We all want to earn money, but not at the cost of others. I think that fundamental thing which was missing in our curricula, because this ethics, values, honesty, integrity was there in the early time when we took our independence, but gradually it has eroded. There is no more such kind of course existing in our curricula, nor there are any tall leaders amongst the educational community in the colleges and schools who will give you inspiration that we need to be ethical, we need to be value-based, we need to be honest. And there are no role models to look at. And that is the tragedy. And that's why, to get this full human potential to be achieved and to create an equitable and just society, these two twin words used in the policy in the first paragraph itself, to get that, there is a table which I have formed where we need to fulfill these goals, we need to understand each other. See, this understanding is very, very important. Many times there are lots of misgivings, misunderstanding. I don't want to refer to the agitations which are taking place, whether it is anti-CAA agitation, whether it is the current ongoing Farm Bill agitation. All of these are because there is no right understanding, the right feeling, why government is doing something between the government and the people. I think that connect we need to re-establish, and everyone should not take to streets, but to understand what are our aspirations and what is the aspiration of the government. These two have to meet. And that's why this policy is talking indirectly about all of this. This is very important. Second part is we are through the corona crisis, COVID crisis. We are all aware our healths are all under risk, and that's why we were not able to travel, meet each other physically, and this entire program, the 64th day and foundation day, is being celebrated in an online mode using a internet platform. And therefore health is a very important thing. Therefore, for every individual, how government can create it, whether it is in terms of insurance, whether it is creating hospitals which are of high order, how any poor person also gets his due in terms of health care. That's very, very important. It is therefore, when I said some of the courses which ASCI is running do contain some of these things which are very, very important for the nation. Prosperity, that means everyone should have some job. Every hand should have a job. Every job should have a hand who can do it actually. And therefore, for every family, unless there is someone who is earning, there cannot be a prosperity, happiness in the family. That's very, very important. And next one is trust, which is very, very important. Fearlessness, which is very important. This has to be developed in society, and none other than educational institutions can do it. Because the people who are in education system, whether it is teachers or students, they are never bothered about who thinks what. Whatever is the fact, fearlessly they say. But at times, we have found that they are subjugated, and therefore, this fearlessness is also to be created amongst our faculty and students. Very, very important. And in terms of mutual enrichment, which is not just self enrichment, but the entire environmental enrichment. And this is what our ancient philosophy always talked about. And I will come back to that at the end also. Sarve Janaha Sukhino Bhavantu. That is very, very important. And Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The whole world is one family. And that spirit, if it is imbibed through the new education policy, I'm sure the present, whatever 17 sustainable development goals of the United Nations are there, they're all part of our system. They were all part of our culture. And therefore, promoting national development while sustainability is also taken care of. It's not just GDP growth, high growth of GDP. And if you are killing our environment, if you are not sustainable, this will only continue for 10 years, 20 years, and then we are going to be in trouble. That is not good enough. And that's why this is very, very important. A nation in harmony within as well as outside, that's the significant thing. And I'm sure if we do all of that, the expectations from the education to create people who are very competent to fulfill these aspirations of the nation will happen. And this policy has a vision, a mission, and values. And I have narrated earlier, so I don't want to continue with that vision, mission, and values, which are what was said in the previous couple of slides. They are reiterated here. But what is important is, since many times industry talks about our graduates being not up to the mark, not employable, they are not entrepreneurial, that means there are challenges which are ahead in our education system and we have to take them on squarely. So the common attributes I am talking about as part of what is known as National Board of Accreditation. I am drawing parallel from that. These challenges are to be addressed. So Indian graduates, there are 6 common graduate attributes which are common to almost everyone, and there are 6 which may be relevant to a particular area or domain. And both of these are to be met by different segments of the education sector, whether it is engineering or it's an arts college or a commerce college or a science college, management institute, architecture, medical, law. Each one of them may have those core areas as certain attributes and certain which are common. So we will look at the common attributes which are more significant because they are across the board. Holistic vision of life and social responsible behavior. I think this is very significant because my pleasure, I can always take care, but how other is not disturbed, that is the most significant thing which we have to start teaching them while they are in the schools. And that's why our 3-week student induction program, when these values are tried to be inculcated, they get a flavor, taste of it. They realize, it is not forcing them. It is making them realize. This realization, self-introspection is more important. You always do reflection and find out, if I am happy but he is unhappy, can I still be happy? I think you ask this question yourself 10 times, you will get an answer that fellow will someday disturb you. So both people's happiness is equally important. I have already talked about environmentally responsible whatever work we do, and that is to be part of the curriculum. Ethical human conduct, corruption free in terms of all value systems, maintaining good health and hygiene, which will help us in corona time also. Communication skills, which industry often talks about. A candidate may know very many things, but he is not able to express, and that's why these communication skills are important. But we have to go more than communication skills to life skills, whether it is teamwork, whether it is coming together and creating certain thing. Variety of people, when they come together, how do they adjust with each other, how time management is done, how leadership is developed. All of those are part of the life skills which are important. Then lifelong learning. Learning should never stop because whether it is technology, whether it is science, whether it is social moorings, they keep changing as society progresses, and therefore our learning has to be continuous. We cannot say that I have got everything now and I will stop it. It is something similar to our medicines, who have an expiry date. So if I don't learn something new, I'm going to be expiry date is over. So I have to be lifelong learner. I think that spirit has to be imbibed while we are all in the educational institutions into our students, and therefore first in the faculty members. Graduate attributes which are of core areas, the knowledge base in the domain. Suppose in engineering, we need to do engineering. If it is computer science, all variety of softwares, data science, we need to understand. If we are a mechanical engineer, whether it is different types of engines, turbo machines, mechanisms, we need to understand. If you are a civil engineer, construction technologies, and how the water resources are to be utilized, that is the domain knowledge. And it is the same thing if you go to architecture, if you go to medicine, each one of them have a different domain knowledge. Then for each program, there are different types of problems which we need to address. And that's why ability to find out the problem through our five senses. In fact, quite often we don't use our senses. While going on the street, we see a problem, but we don't observe it. That has been physically seen by your eyes, but you are not really connected with that. And that's where our using of five senses is very important. Ears, eyes, your tongue, your nose, your skin, all of these five senses given by the God, if you use them properly, the problems which surround us can be very easily observed. Once you know the problem, half the solution is there, and then you start analyzing how do you try to solve that. Then there are design, development of solutions. That's why design thinking is important. And this is not just for engineering, it is necessary for all domains of knowledge. Then conduct investigation of complex problems. And as the complexity increases, your solution has to be simple. And therefore, how do you divide that? And then different people are given different tasks. That is where we call it as teamwork and leadership. And then finally get the outcome out of that. Use different modern engineering tools. This engineering tools is not just for engineering, for anyone else. Today you tell me anyone who is in the domain of anywhere, if he does not know word processing using Microsoft or Excel sheet, he is good for nothing. And that's why lots of engineering tools which are coming into domain, one has to understand and learn them. Then finance and project management. You are an institution who does many of the management things, but it is required for arts students, it is required for engineering, it is required for medicine. Anyone who does not know finance, anyone who does not know management ethos will fail in his job, and therefore these are all required to be done. And I'm repeating few of them now, very important things. These are the major challenges: honesty, integrity, and acceptance of reality. And this is very, very important for faculty members for attending. Many a times when we are in the institution teaching, we find that a student asks a very tricky question. If you do not know that answer, what we do is we either go roundabout and the vague answer is given, or we tell them that this is a very silly thing. What is this you are asking? It's very simple. Go and see. But we never tell factually that I don't know this answer. Either I will come prepared tomorrow from looking at books or internet and then come back and answer to you. Or you find out somewhere and come and tell me, I don't know. Teacher has to be a lifelong learner. I think this honesty, integrity is an important challenge for us today. And similarly, work culture and attitude. Except where there is an attendance rule, people will come and sit there. Otherwise, on their own, how many of them follow all the required timings, etc.? In every educational institution, there is a question mark. And therefore, these are our challenges. Faculty, there is no motivation. But yesterday, I was highly inspired. You all know that a small place, Solapur in Maharashtra, not even Solapur, a village near Solapur. One teacher in a primary school, Jilla Parishad school, Ranjit Singh Disale, he got the global award for being a best teacher, and he received $1 million. And greatness was, there were 10 finalists. He shared half the prize with remaining 9 competitors whose competition was with him. He said, I got it because whatever, I may be delta X better than some others, but they were equally competent, equally good. and they also need to be motivated. They should continue their good work in different countries. I think what a philosophy. That's where I said Sarve Janaha Sukhino Bhavantu is in our DNA. And that motivation is missing in our faculty today. So we must take cue from Ranjit Singh Disale, and we need many more Disales of this nature. And that is this particular policy is talking about how do we create them. And therefore, training of faculty is important. Up-to-date, lifelong learning. Of course, funding is required to take care of many things, and therefore, government cannot skip its responsibility. Currently, we spend about 4.43% of the GDP, too less, because we have been having a lot of backlog. We have a vision of becoming 50% in gross enrollment ratio from the present 27% in the next 15 years. And we all know that the population will grow in the next 15 years. So present 3.5 crore students in the higher education are likely to be about 10 crore, 100 million. Many of the, populations of different countries joined together may not be that much. And therefore, there is a huge requirement, funding. But at least continuously we are saying that it must be up to the level of 6%. I hope through the new policy, whatever is stated, when it started to be implemented in few years' time, we will reach from 4.43% to 6%. As far as resources is concerned, it is not just the government resources. How do we mobilize them? That means whether it is alumni, whether it is the surroundings, the philanthropists, whether it is the industry through their CSR activities. I think all of these are required to be done by all of us. And then if you do implementation with all sincerity, passion, perseverance, there may be failures, ups and downs. We should not forget that there are always failures. All startups go through this cycle. And we are like a startup. Each one of us, each teacher, each student should think that we are an entrepreneur, we are running a startup. So while implementing this, there could be ups and downs, and we must take them into stride and then move forward. And then commitment from the governments, state as well as center, and all the stakeholders. When I say stakeholders, students are stakeholders, parents are stakeholders, we have our industry friends who are stakeholders, society around us are stakeholders. All of them should pitch in and give whatever best they can give to create those resources. Now, the resources also could be of varieties. Human resources. In order to train these faculty who are coming into the system, we need a large-scale pool of trainers and probably retired faculty as well as current faculty from some of the best institutions like IITs, NITs, also maybe some of the good central universities. They should pitch in. Similarly, people from industry, instead of cribbing all the time that students coming out are not employable, how they can pitch in and help institutions in variety of ways, in the curriculum revision, in terms of co-teaching, in terms of setting up some of the labs in the colleges, in terms of going there as an examiner, in terms of giving them some very interesting projects so that students get invigorated and they start solving those problems, which is win-win situation. You get solution from the students. And mentoring scheme, mentor our teachers, mentor our students, thereby the new generation which is created will be in the new India good citizens. Philanthropy, we should use alumni funding. I have already said consultancy and testing, CSR funding, government funding, industry funding for research, leadership training programs. This is also significant because many times our faculty may be good. At times, the leaders, the institution heads, whether it is directors, vice chancellors, principals of the colleges, they put in spokes in what a faculty member is trying to do. So a lot of interesting things happen. Everyone wants autonomy, but they don't want to give autonomy to others. For example, government doesn't want to give autonomy to the universities. Universities do not want to give autonomy to their colleges, which are affiliated to them. The colleges, if they get autonomy, principals don't want to give it to the faculty members. Faculty members don't want to give it to the students. They have no choice-based learning. Anything that they want to learn, we don't allow them. So the new policy has lots of flexibilities in all these respects. And I have already talked about Indian knowledge system. A division of Indian knowledge system has been created in then Ministry of HRD and now Ministry of Education. And we are going to work on all the ancient knowledge that existed, bring it out, and then vet it, clearly put it on the website so that people are aware of what all things happened and where we can take it forward. It's not that we should be only proud of the ancient heritage, but taking cue from that, how it is made relevant to today's needs and how we can take it forward for the future in terms of doing research, innovation, using the ancient knowledge. I think these are two important, significant things. Now, coming to the major recommendations which are there in the education policy, we always talked about access, equity, and quality, but now a parameter of accountability and affordability is added in this policy. We want that educational institutions are all accountable. I will come to the regulatory framework, and then this accountability will have a meaning which will be attached to that. And affordability. The fee to be charged should be such that which is just sufficient for taking care of the education, but not making profit. Because in our country, we always feel that education is not for profit. And we always said Vidya Dana, we always say Vidya Danam. We never said Vidya is in terms of commercialization. And that's why it is also constitutionally written, but also act-wise, and therefore affordability is very important. Then it talks about knowledge, skills, and attitude. These three are all linked together, a triangle. You have to have knowledge, you should have skill, but having both knowledge and skill without attitude, we will not be able to use that. And that's why attitude is important for all of us. And then as far as knowledge itself is concerned, there are four significant things. In different chapters, the policy talks about different ways. One of them is generation of knowledge. That means research. You do fundamental research so that new knowledge is generated. You publish papers, you write new books. That is knowledge generation. Knowledge assimilation is worldwide knowledge is generated, not just in India. How do we assimilate it and know about it and then become part of it? And then once you are assimilating that, how, in what way you can disseminate it in the best possible manner so that the students who are in your class will also get the same level of knowledge that you have possessed. And therefore, there is a distinct difference between the information which is available on the internet today, whether it is YouTube or different types of material which is there on the web. That is information. But how do you convert information into knowledge? And that is what, while disseminating this information, the faculty member has a great role. And just not knowledge, he has to further go ahead, and what is required to be done is give wisdom. How to use, where to use, why to use is also very important. And if you do that, naturally the application of knowledge starts happening, and that is where entrepreneurs will emerge. That is how startups will emerge. That is how jobs will be created. That is how life of the people will become simple, easy, good, happy. And that is what is all a linkage with knowledge to the economy. And that is very, very important. And when it comes to skills, I had already said skills are not just soft skills, but they are hard skills also of your domain. But more importantly, life skills, time management, teamwork, problem solving. I think these are very, very significant. And while students are in the college or the university has to take care of these skill sets, which are very, very important. And attitude-wise, ability to change, ability to adapt, being flexible is important as much as problem solving and lifelong learning. And this ability to change, ability to adapt is what many times industry sees, because today, whatever programming language we are using may not exist 5 years down the line. Probably what type of internal combustion engine we are using in the automobile will vanish. There will be completely solar-driven cars, battery-driven cars. So how do we adapt to the new technologies that are emerging? I think that is what is important. Then in the beginning, some of you also narrated that the policy talks about change in the school education from present 10+2 to 5+3+3+4 system, which is starting at the age of 3 instead of 6. And this is a clear deviation. Of course, we had informally nursery, lower KG, upper KG or Anganwadi system at the age of 3 to 4, 5. But now it is in the formal way, a child gets into education at the age of 3. An initial phase of learning is in mother tongue through stories, games, and activities, so that there is no stress on the child. Writing script, reading scripts are all taken off in the beginning. A student will learn many things through games, stories, and activities, and therefore, when we always had a 3-language formula never implemented, now it is very easy, because if you tell stories in any language, student will start capturing the essence of that, and gradually he learns, she learns. They discuss amongst themselves in that language. Some students may be of one language, another student of another language. There will be collaboration, and then they will start learning. I think therefore primary education through games, stories, activities in variety of languages, maybe even Sanskrit can be learned, maybe Tamil can be learned, maybe Hindi can be learned by anyone. It's very easy. This is what is the fundamental thing which has been talked about. And then why can't even higher education be taught in Indian languages? It has to be promoted. Then skill and vocational education should begin early, at the age of class 6. Today we have a national skill qualification framework. We have also diploma in vocation, degree in vocation. But if you look at the degree holders in vocational education, they are looked upon as somehow substandard, whereas they are the ones who deliver. And that's why the skill vocational education has to start early enough at the age of 6, so that when they complete their 12th standard of the present day, or the 15 years of the new system of 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, at least 2 to 3 skill sets they will be already have acquired, and they will be able to get jobs. So this 9th to 12th of the present day has no arts, commerce, science division, which today has between 11th and 12th. It will be exactly the same way, like up to 10th standard, we don't have a division of arts, commerce, science. It will continue till the 12th standard. People will be much more generic in nature, and when they come to the higher education, there is again continuity of multidisciplinary nature. So the universities are required to be multidisciplinary, multiple exit and entry, a very great specialty. Anyone who finds that he is unfit, or he is misfit, or he is not interested, or there are some difficulties in the family, therefore he has to go out. He will not go with an empty hand, but he will have a certificate or a diploma while he quits a 4-year program at the end of 2 years or 3 years. Similarly, if some transfer of the parents take place, especially for daughters, many times this is a problem. The parents cannot keep them in a hostel, it's very expensive, or they have to take a daughter with them wherever they are transferred. So a person can go from one university to the other university, carry the credits which were earned earlier into their account, which is called academic bank of credits. It's like a bank account where you have credits instead of money, and you can use it and encash it in another university. All institutions are to be autonomous. All my earlier policies which I narrated, right from Radhakrishnan Committee to 1992 policy, autonomy is to be given to institutions. All was said but never happened, except more than 10%. We have not been able to give autonomy. So 2 things are happening in the new policy. Minimum number of students should be 3,000 in any institution. So all such institutions where there are only 100 students, 200 students will have to coalesce, will have to merge with many other institutions to become an institution which is degree awarding with a minimum strength of 3,000 plus students. And therefore, institutions like ASCI will have to decide about how do we expand, how do we create new programs, how do we engage with some others, and in a joint collaborative mode. Under RUSA, we have such system which is existing. How do we give degrees to students based on that? So there will be nothing like a standalone institution with giving diplomas like that exists today, postgraduate diploma in management. One can give straight away BBA or MBA. But we need to be autonomous. We need to have minimum 3,000 student strength. We need to expand. We have to be multidisciplinary. We have provision of exiting and re-entering into the same institution or entering into some other institution. These are very fundamental, important things which are talked about in this policy, are different from in the past. Then there is a huge research funding provided in terms of one of the agencies which is going to be created called National Research Foundation. And this research is not just for engineering, science, technology, but also in humanities, social sciences, arts, everything. And therefore, on the lines of National Science Foundation, this is going to come up in the new policy. Now, many people ask me, what is this multidisciplinary? How do you give? And many times people give wrong examples. There are 64 arts, I said, different variety of ancient arts, which are 64 in number. And we have various modern sciences like physics, chemistry, mathematics, biology, engineering, architecture, pharmacy, all of them together maybe about 80, 100. So if a student decides, I will take one course from each one of them and please give me a degree, what use is he going to be? And therefore, multidisciplinary does not mean that I will pick up one course, but they must be in some way correlated, and some of the interest of the student is to be taken care of. I have listed some list of courses. For example, herbal medicine is a course. So it is traditional pharmacology of the modern science, the Ayurveda of the past, biotechnology, which is again a emerging area, plant biology, industrial process engineering, so engineering has come, biochemistry, virology, immunology. See, these are all related some way with the medicine. And therefore, how do we engage people in terms of getting them on board? Similarly, music, painting, sculpture, what are the things which are related with that? Yoga, classical language, grammar, even in these respects, we can have different ways of having multidisciplinary nature. Now I'm coming to this toys and games, very interesting, because there is a toy hackathon ongoing. Toy artisans, there are there from different areas of the country, UI engineering, there are also Puranas, Indian festivals, we can incorporate them. We can have history, materials of different nature, mechanical design, electronics design, marketing, and entrepreneurship. These are all related with preparation, design, manufacturing, and marketing, and therefore entrepreneurship. I think this is a very important course because whatever toys are there in India today, 90% of them come from abroad, and of that, nearly 90% comes from China. And our whole economy is dependent on the Chinese economy, and therefore, I think we need to develop them. So such courses may have to be evolved. Now, teacher training, I have already reflected once, so I'm reiterating. Integrated technical vocational teacher education. AICTE has already had 8-module program, which is already ongoing, and this may be expanded to other domains of education for higher education, thereby, except the first one where technical education and curriculum is highlighted, all other modules are open-ended, which are useful for any variety of teachers, and therefore, this may be easily as is adopted in the new education policy while implementing it. We have a Swayam portal, which is already available. Technology-enabled learning, students can not necessarily come to the physical premises in some of the parts of the education, maybe management, maybe computer applications, maybe arts, maybe psychology, maybe economics. But when it comes to maybe engineering or pharmacy or chemistry, I think students will have to come to the physical campuses. But even in other domain, there must be limited, because ultimately human to human interaction is very important. Now it is pandemic, and therefore we are all doing everything online is fine. But the day pandemic is over, I think we must come back to the normal life where students will come and sit in the canteen, discuss various things. They will go to a classroom, library, physical library as well as the virtual library. All of that is important, and it is supplemented by Swayam, supplemented by technology in terms of technology-enabled learning. The next important thing which policy talks about is about examination reforms. We all know the Bloom's taxonomy, that the questions which are asked normally from KG to PG are all based on memory today. We need to move away from that. Question papers based on understanding, analytical skills, synthesis, ability to think critically, data analytics, innovation, creativity. I don't know how many of us set question papers beyond memory and understanding. Very few in analytical and synthesis, very few in critical thinking, and much less question which are innovation based and creativity based. And then it talks also about internationalization, setting up of foreign universities in India and Indian universities going and setting up our university campuses abroad. that is a mutual exchange taking place. And this will bring in more competition. And then what we often lament that none of our institutions are in the top 100, 200. When we get challenged, we will certainly achieve that as well. Then coming to a very important point, that of governance and regulation. It talks about a single regulatory body, and naturally this has to be implemented through an act of parliament. Existing whatever regulatory bodies are there, they need to be dissolved, because there are multiple agencies for a given institution. Many a times different institutions, that is different regulatory bodies, go and inspect. Their standards are different, and therefore institutions may get approval from one but will not get from the other, and there are court cases. I think this all will get dissolved, and this is a very important reform that this particular policy is talked about. So AICTE will vanish, UGC will vanish, NCT will vanish, Pharmacy Council, Architecture Council, all of them will have no role other than a new body which is called Higher Education Commission of India, HECI. And under that there are four verticals, four pillars. First pillar is that of regulation, National Higher Education Regulatory Council. And interestingly, one famous statement in the policy is the regulation has to be light but tight. And many people ask, what is this light and what is this tight? The light is there are no inspections. It is all self-driven. You announce it on your own, what all you possess, what all you have, depending on what is necessary. Because there are quality standard setting bodies, which are General Education Council. For different type of education, what is minimum needed? For example, how many classrooms are needed, how many faculties, student ratio required, what type of laboratories required, what equipment required. The General Education Council will have all variety of such inbuilt elements who will direct what is necessary. And what is necessary, the institution will have to simply say that we satisfy all those things and come to the regulatory body and get the approval. It is self-disclosure based, same as the company law, exactly the same way. That is what is light. So you don't have to worry about the different allegations which often take place, that the regulator, when they come to the colleges, there are lots of corrupt practices, all get dissolved. There is nothing like this. And fortunately, this time AICTE experimented during COVID by using Microsoft Teams platform. Our entire inspection was all virtual. And we did not have any complaint, no complaint from the faculty who inspected the institution, nor from the colleges who were inspected, because everything was recorded, everything was available in black and white. No, sorry, now we should say black and white ke badle mein, we should say in color, because our videos are all in color. So no one can now charge that something is going wrong. So I think the policy talks about this regulatory council, which will be based on self-disclosure. But where is the tightness? When you have disclosed it and when it is there on your own local website, the student, the parent, the industry who observe this, and then they find that what you have said is all fake. You don't have that many faculty members, you don't have classrooms. Then the student or the faculty or the stakeholder, that is industry, will complain to the regulatory body, and then the action is very tight. It can be very, very heavy penalty on the educational institution. And that is what is light but tight. Then there is National Accreditation Council. We already have NBA. I have given the 12 parameters on which the accreditation is done. Similarly, there is NAC. Now this is NAC, NAC, not NAAC NAC, and which will consume both probably NBA and NAC, and this National Accreditation Council will do accreditation. And those institutions who do well, whether private or government, who follow the General Education Council's norms, regulatory bodies norms, all of them, if they deserve funding, education funding will be given by Higher Education Grants Council. So these are four verticals. And some of these standards, which I said to be set up, are for National Higher Education Qualification Framework and Skill Qualification Framework. This is also one of the agenda. Then system of governance is not given there. We have created from AICTE, and we are submitting it to the Ministry of Education for implementation purposes. What should be the nature of Board of Governors, management, how institutional development plan should be there, what is the role of Senate or the Academic Council, what are the different nature of the jobs and therefore how different types of deans are required. We have listed about 10, 12 deans which are required for an excellent institution. And if you do all that, I'm sure that the task is cut for the Board of Governors to evaluate all those deans, all the faculty members from time to time, and delegation of powers, planning, which is strategic in nature, transparency, human resources, all of that, if it is done, I'm sure the expected outcomes by 2035, as envisaged in the new national education policy, all graduates are to be employable. It's not 50%, 100%. Entrepreneurial ecosystems. We are already between third to second largest startup ecosystem of the world. Sometimes some data says third, sometimes second, but we have to be the first largest ecosystem, that is the entrepreneurial ecosystem of the world. In terms of innovation, we have to have an innovation-based ecosystem in all colleges and universities, thereby in the society as well. And we are today at 48th position, jumping from 81 5 years ago. Gradually, we have come 5, 6 places every year ahead, and today we are at 48. But our potential is top 10. How this policy will be able to do it is possible, provided we all put in our hard work. Then original and applied research. In terms of the number of publications, we are already in the top 5 of the world. But in terms of per capita, we are not even amongst the top 20, because our population is so large. So if the number of publications are within the top 5 countries, I think we should not be too satisfied. But secondly, more importantly, what about quality of publications? The quality publications are rated in terms of quartiles, top 25% journals. That is called first quartile. And there we are very poor. We are not even 12th. So even though our research is happening, we have been improving continuously the last decade. I think we have to do a quantum pole vault jump, and both original and applied research has to catapult us truly in the top 5 of the world. And we have that potential. So all of this, if you do, we will create good citizens, good future leaders, not just for India, but global leaders, which are already being seen. If you look at most of these global companies, CEOs of those companies are Indians. So we are already producing and providing, but more so in the future. An egalitarian society, concern for environment and ecological protection, and finally, the developed India, new India, the Atmanirbhar Bharat, which the Honourable Prime Minister is often speaking today. And finally, not only for ourselves, but Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam and Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha, and become Vishwaguru. That is, our institutions like IITs, IICs, IIMs of the world should become new Nalandas and Takshashilas. And unlike our students going abroad, students from abroad should come to study in India. And that is the vision with which we should go ahead. Thank you very much for the patient listening by all of you. And as said in the beginning, if you are interested in some question answers, I am open. I am very happy to answer.
Professor Sahasrabudhe, thank you very much for this outstanding presentation. I mean, such a complex subject, you have covered the entire gamut in less than 1 hour, and something great. Now, I just don't want to paraphrase what you have said, but for the other audience, I just wanted to mention that you covered the basic philosophy behind the new education system, which is the very important, unless that base is there, one won't appreciate what exactly is the new policy. So the enunciation of the basic philosophy behind the new education system. The second one is you brought out the challenges before the Indian graduates. I have to say a little more on that. The third one is, I very much liked your slide on the resources. You have pointed out 10 resources, 10 sources from which resources can be raised. An excellent suggestion you have made on that. And the fourth one is the system of governance. You have, it was your last but one slide. But I'm surprised that in the report of the national policy, the system of governance has not been included and it has been left to you. I mean, I thought that is the most important thing, But, well, I'm sure AITC would do an excellent job on that. But that shows how in the governance comes, we fall behind, a bit. Now, I just wanted to start the discussion. I have 2, 3 connected questions. You may either answer one or you may not answer any, but I would just leave it to you. The question is about the teachers' training. The general impression is in the last 3 or 4 years, the teachers' salaries have gone up fairly high. I mean, it's not like earlier in my language, they used to say the school teacher's job is, just like a sheep's tail, it doesn't grow beyond 3 inches, something like that. But I think the salaries are very good. But the quality of the teachers is still abysmally low. Their commitment is very low. Their involvement in local politics is very high. How are we going to retrain the entire, the teacher training? I think that's going to be a major, this one. Now, the second one I wanted you to comment is, you mentioned about the challenges of the Indian graduates. You distributed them into the common graduate attributes and the graduate attributes, the core areas. I'm not concerned about the core areas. I am sure they would be taken care of. They're very important. But the point is about the common graduate attributes. You mentioned quite a number of them: holistic vision of life and socially responsible behavior, environmentally responsible work, and then ethical human conduct, etc., etc., and maintaining health and hygiene, communication skills, lifelong learning. Now, how are you going to inculcate this? How are you going to achieve these common graduate attributes, amongst the students? That is another question I wanted to pose. Third one is the role of the state governments. Education is, of course, is in the common list, concurrent list, but the state governments play an extremely important role. And aren't there differences from state to state in the achievements in the educational field? So how do you take care of these state to state differences and what role they would play? And you mentioned about the, one more question is, there are students, there are teachers, and there is a third most important thing, that is the education policy makers, education administrators, education managers. You have put them all, in 4 verticals. You said so many organizations to be done under the overriding body to be created by the parliament. There would be regulatory bodies, accreditation bodies, and then grants giving bodies, general educational council, and quality control. Now, when are these organizations going to be created? Who are going to head these things? How would they work? What is the commitment? Now, your long-term aim is 35 years. But in government policies, we know secretaries are transferred every 2 years or even less than that. What about the continuity of these? How do you sort of make these people accountable to deliver what is put in the policy? These are the general questions I thought I might ask you to comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Padmanabhaya ji. Very relevant, very important questions. I will go one by one. The first one is about teachers' reorientation, attitudinal change. I think that is the most fundamental of all the things. And I'm very happy that the same country where we have all these problems, Ranjit Disale comes out. So that means there are people who are passionate.
One in a 100 crores.
What is missing is, like we do heroes out of our cinema field, or
Yeah,
from
we
some
must make,
sports
yes.
field, like Tendulkar or Rajesh Khanna or Amitabh Bachchan. Like this, we must make Ranjit Disale the hero of the country.
Agreed.
Every day we should speak about him. And I will give another example, sir. Because teacher's role is important. What Swami Vivekananda said is to bring out perfection already in man. And that is the role of the teacher. You don't have to teach. Information is available plenty. How do you mold him? How do you help him? How do you mentor him? How do you support him? I think that is important. And I remember the story of Hima Das, and it's worth saying. She is a small girl who was playing football with boys in a small village near Nagaon in Assam. And while playing football, the coach was coaching. She was the only girl, and remaining all boys were there. But he observed the sprint, the way she was running. He said she is more fit for athletics than for what is that football game.
Education.
So he took her away, put her in Guwahati, where she was trained. Within 6 months, the first ever under 16 gold medal for India for women was won by her. And thereafter, in any competition she has entered, she has only won the gold medal. Of course, Olympic is still a long way, but I'm saying in terms of several sports meets she has done. But who did it? It is that sports coach. That means the teacher. So the teacher has to be essentially a coach.
You do that.
He is a mentor. He is a performer. And if you do that, I'm sure it's possible. So I think we have to create heroes out of our good teachers, celebrate them. And if you start doing that, good students will start coming in. In fact, for some time, about 20 years ago, to last 5-10 years, there has been an often statement said, one who does not get any job, they come into teaching profession. If you get that left out, what is the fate of the education? I think the topmost guys, those who are passionate, those who are brilliant, they must come to the teaching profession. The industry will be carried forward. Don't worry about industry. They can help industry also, such faculty members. And therefore, I think attitudinal change is important. Saying is easy, doing is difficult. I understand, sir. But what is significant is the 8-module program which we have done. And in every class, if you start playing that role, who is the best one? And I will give many examples. On the airport, when you find out a student comes and suddenly touches your feet, and you don't even recognize him or her, because that boy would not have got mustache when he was in our college, and today he is some manager or a deputy manager at some level, and he comes and touches your feet. You ask him, who are you? Sir, in 1998 I was your student. What a pleasure you get. It is more than $1 million, sir. So I think that is what we need to inculcate amongst our faculty. We will be able to do it. And there are enough teachers. And I think those teachers have to be respected by the society, by the people at large. And then the transformation will start happening. I'm sure that happens. Graduate attributes, again, very difficult, but few things are easy to do. Always a student will learn from the teacher. And therefore, I'm again concentrating on your first question of that of teacher. If the teachers change, their attitude changes, students' attitude changes. I have observed even in a college, if there are 100 teachers and 90 of them are very poor and bad, the 10 teachers who are role models, who are the excellent teachers, students will follow them. They will follow not only when they are in the college, lifelong they will follow. Those ethics, values, I have also imbibed from some of my teachers, not that they have come automatically. Some of those values like time management, the punctuality, the ethics and honesty, I think we observe, and our young generation is very good in observation and they will follow them. I think I have no worries. New India is going to be a very good India. It's only our teachers, whoever we are, we need to change ourselves. And if you do that and put in some effort in terms of what we say as giving them exposure. For example, environmental responsibility. Why can't we take students to the remote areas where there are jungles being cut? He will himself observe, she will observe that we are doing damage. And then that is self-introspection, reflection. And rather than saying that don't do this, don't, see, always when in the young generation, when you say don't do this, they will always do it. Right from the children at our homes, you say that don't touch the fire, it will burn your fingers. It will not do it in front of you, but it will certainly do without your knowledge. And then when the fingers get burnt, it will understand what it is. So I think that experiential learning is important. If you provide that experiential learning to our students, whether it is communication skills, lifelong learning, ethical value system, everything will come from the teachers. It will flow. It is like gravity from the higher level to the lower level. So the teachers at a higher level, if they follow the principles correctly, it will follow to the students. Then comes your state and the center and the education being in concurrent list, what is the role of states? In fact, fortunately, this policy was through the consultative mechanism. 2.5 lakh gram panchayats consulted, educationists from state governments consulted, and no one has objected to any parameter anywhere in this particular policy. That is a positive thing. But while implementing, there are challenges because as far as funding is concerned, some states have wherewithal, some do not have. So how do we really take care? The central government has to do some exercise on that. And if that 6% is made available, and as I said, forget about central government or the state government. Every institution, if they have that resources, you rightly pointed out that I have mentioned all resources. And this is from my first principal example. My work in College of Engineering Pune, it's a state government college, 165-year-old, where Vishwesvaraya studied at one time, had gone back, down and down. It is a FC Kohli who pulled me up from the IIT Guwahati and said that you must come here. For 9 long years, I worked there. And transition from the faculty who were not even coming to the college to coming to the college, who were running away early, to not taking classes, to making all of them to take classes, to getting funding from alumni who were not believing in the college, to nearly more than 40 to 50 crore rupees in that 9 years we were able to collect, almost a similar way as that of an IIT. And it has become like IIT like system. So I think provided leadership has that quality, leadership has that commitment, that passion, nothing is impossible, sir. So that is the next part of it. So whether state government supports or not, or central government gives limited funding, I think each one should evolve their own mechanisms of engaging with alumni, engaging with the industry, engaging with society, because ultimately we are doing for whom? We are all doing for them, not for us. And if you convince them, money is not a problem. Then you rightly said policymakers are important, and you are all training those policymakers in your institute in ASCI. So I'm sure they are all to be involved. And what you said is not 35 years, it is up to 2035. So that means next 15 years.
15 years, I'm
From
sorry.
2020 to 2035. Some of these are to be achieved in 5 years, short term, some 10 years, some 15 years. But there are certain committees which are being talked about in this policy. So whether it is the bureaucracy or the government, the political party in power may change, the ministers may change, the bureaucrats may change, but those systems are going to be in place, like those 4 verticals in the HECI. And similarly, beyond that, to help those 4 committees also, there are institutions which will be there who will take care of setting of standards. Some of them will take care of research funding. So there are systemic changes which are going to happen. And obviously, all of this cannot be done overnight. And in some places, as I said, an act of parliament is to be brought in, a dissolution of the present acts, or overriding them by a new act. And this will certainly take a few months' time. But since the policy before announcement, it had gone through all the cycles, which I said from panchayat to the prime minister and the parliament, parliamentary committee on education had met MHRD and several times with the persons who have framed the policy. Cabinet discussed it couple of times and then finally has adopted. So there is a conviction that we must do it. Once there is a conviction that we must do it, I think the systems will fall in place. And I have seen this government can do very easily. Passing of bills is not a very difficult job. So the new act of parliament sooner than later will certainly come. But before that, there must be some debate, discussion about the contents. If there are any small pitfalls, they have to be addressed. And then the government should take care of it. And I'm sure this policy will take the roots and we will be in a position to successfully implement it.
Thank you, Professor, for that positive note.
I have answered all your queries.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sir, there is a question from our Honourable Court of Governor member, Shri Pradeep Dobale. He is saying that the policy would not have taken into consideration the virtual or digital education that is happening as a result of the pandemic. What impact do you think it will have on implementation of the new education policy?
No. Policy had not taken into account pandemic, because pandemic was not there when this policy was framed.
I know.
But it certainly had taken care of what is known as open and distance learning and online education. Now it has only got accelerated. In the startup, we say that the incubator and accelerator. So this is like the pandemic is like accelerator. The policy was already having that incubation in terms of online education, and that was necessary because we wanted to increase gross enrollment ratio from 27%, which is presently there, to 50%, and it could not have been done without going through the route of ODL or online education. Because brick and mortar universities, there are multiple problems. One is, first of all, procurement of land. Land is so expensive, and getting land even in rural area today is difficult.
Very difficult.
You know that our roads, if from 4 lane to 6 lane, if you have to do, or if you have to set up a new plant, kind of difficulty that the government faces in terms of first the people's resistance, then the what we say as the courts, then there are protests, and then there are financial requirements, and therefore it is very difficult to get land. If you get land, then construction, after construction, 5 years are lost. Then you have to recruit faculty, equipment. I think it's a elaborate process for building up the brick and mortar universities. Therefore, with the existing brick and mortar, how do you do blended model?
Blended.
Someone will come in the morning, someone will come in the evening, someone will come in the weekend or vacation and still get the education. Someone will come only on online mode, and someone will come sometimes in online and sometimes in the offline. I think these are the mixed blended models which will emerge because of pandemic. Otherwise also the policy had envisaged that we have to have the online education.
Any other questions?
Thank you, sir. So one of our students is asking that whether the policy envisages some scholarship for entrepreneurship while the student is pursuing a UG or a PG course, just like we have scholarship for, let's say, pursuing PhD. So for entrepreneurship, is the policy thinking of having some scholarship for the students?
So this is a very good question you have asked, and we have done in a small way. Policy has not talked about specifically how do you encourage entrepreneurship, but the startup policy, which was announced by AICTE soon after India's startup policy was announced way back in 2016 from the Rashtrapati Bhavan, the then President Sri Mukherjee announced it, and that policy has various elements, but that was also not sufficient. So 2 years back, one of the very good entrepreneurs by himself from IIT Madras, Dr. Ashok Jhunjhunwala, who has created many entrepreneurial ventures in IIT Madras and the research park. So under his chairmanship, the committee has put in several things in which there are 2-3 supports which are given. First thing, if a student has a brilliant idea, like faculty are given sabbatical leave of 1 year or 2 years, and they can go out and come back. Students can be given a sabbatical leave. And now this policy also talks about that. Your multiple exit and re-entry will allow that. And therefore a student who has an idea can experiment his startup or an entrepreneurial journey. And if he succeeds, fine. He may quit also. It doesn't require a degree. Like our Apple and Microsoft, how they started in the garage. Or otherwise, they may come back and complete their education and get for a job. So I think that is already provided. And as far as AICTE is concerned, we are already providing support for, of course, right now, for some institutions where they have given an idea which is worth taking forward. Every year we hold a fair where students come and show their projects. And wherever there is a potential, we are funding up to the level of 10 lakh when they are in the college. And separately for our SC, ST brothers and sisters, there is another scheme. So AICTE has already started doing it before the policy came into existence.
Very good. Anything else? Yeah, please.
Sir, one of the other participant is asking, will this policy make education more affordable and cost effective for parents? Like in many other countries, advanced countries, education is free for even higher education is sometimes free. So will it become more cost effective with this introduction of this policy?
It will become cost effective because of our what we said, the online content. Since institute need not have all the students onto the campus, so naturally the resources required will get reduced. The number of faculty will get reduced. You can have a MOOCs course delivered by a professor from IIT Kharagpur or IIT Delhi, and 1,000 students will take it. For your information, a course which is floated by a faculty from NSUT, earlier called NSIT, and now it is a university by itself in Delhi, Netaji Subhash Institute. And from there, a faculty has floated a course which is very important for our hardware electronics engineers. 37,000 students have, registered for the course.
Fantastic.
So 37,000 students will take exams simultaneously. From delivery of lecture is one way, and they will ask questions. There are several tutors who will answer their queries. I think a massive online open course is the medium where cost can come down. But secondly, there is a responsibility to the government. The government institutions will continue where salaries will be taken care of, where support will be given, and therefore the fees in those institutions will certainly be lower. And there are institutions who have to pitch in all their money and then make that education available. So naturally their fee will be higher. So our country is not one cap fits for all. We have there are institutions who will certainly continue to charge higher fee. There are institutions who will have very low fee and substantially lower fee. All variety will continue. And therefore, this is a bouquet of like fruits and flowers where we enjoy everything. And therefore, anyone who deserves, who is interested, who is meritorious, should not be left out. I think that is most significant. And such students, even if the fee is little higher, he should get either scholarship or he should get easy access to bank loan without any trouble, and he must earn his degree, get employment or whatever he does later, and then finally he should repay it back. So I think all models are existing in this institution. My assurance to everyone is probably we are the only country where there is so much complexity involved. So why should the education be low cost for a son of maybe Birla or maybe Reliance, owner, or Tata Steel manager, or the director of an institution, or an IAS officer? Why should it be? They should be able to pay the fee for the education which is required to be paid. Whereas a student from a tribal area, remote area, rural area, whose income parents are doing a very menial job, I think that child who is bright, he should not be left out from the system. I think that is the powerful message this education policy gives.
Wind up.
Thank you very much, sir. You have initially, when you were starting, you said that many of the unrest that is happening in this country is because of lack of understanding and lack of proper understanding of what the government is trying to come out with. I think your talk today itself is very, very clear, and anybody who is viewing this talk, this is going live on YouTube as well, I think if anybody has any doubts in their mind about the new educational policy, those doubts will today be allayed. Thank you very much for a fantastic lecture. You have covered how we can bring about through this educational policy our ancient value system, right up to the nitty-gritty of how the system is going to be regulated, what it means for a student, what it means for a teacher, what it means for regulator, what it means for the industry. It's been an eye-opener, even though we have studied the policy, but the crux, the feel of the policy we have got by listening to your lecture. Thank you very much for sparing time and also taking our questions. It's been an eye-opening experience. Thank you very much, sir. Now I'll request our chairman, sir, to present the memento to our chief guest. Because we are doing it online on behalf of Professor Sahasrabudhe, I will accept the memento, sir, if you don't mind.
We would see.
And we will send it over to you. Our New Delhi center head will hand it over to you personally.
Absolutely. Otherwise, I will receive it virtually from there itself.
Thank you once again, Professor Sahasrabudhe. Thank you for your excellent presentation. And then, as I said, I am giving it uh, for you through the Director General. It would reach you in Delhi.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much, sir. That the meeting ends. That concludes this Foundation Day lecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.